Hi there peeps, and welcome to the latest instalment of The Moaning Show, episode 7, with me as usual, HCD Rules 0001. Now, before I continue, I must apologise to my regular viewers, because this one isn't going to have nearly as much moaning as usual, but it will still have some moaning at the end, so to me it qualifies as a viable subject for The Moaning Show. So I'm going to get right on with it, and this episode will be a tribute to the now forgotten show of Shooting Stars with Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice a black armband on my left arm, and it's for the news of the 15th of November last week, when it was confirmed that this show had been cancelled by the BBC. And going back to episode 1, I complained about the BBC's sports coverage. No doubt I will, in future videos, begin to complain about the BBC in general. I'm beginning to lose patience with the corporation, because they're absolutely getting rid of everything that I and my family like, and they're bringing in total crap to replace it. But that's another subject for another time. So on with Shooting Stars. I've done a little bit of research into it, because obviously these shows do require a little bit. In 1993, Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer were in the middle of the sketch show they called The Smell of Reeves and Mortimer, and they decided to make a sketch of a quiz show using their wacky and zany attributes to create it, using, you know, all of their madness. The ratings for that particular episode were higher than any other, and the captains at that time were Jonathan Ross and the one captain that stayed with them from beginning to end, Ulrika Johnson, who was a weather on GMTV at the time. The ratings for that show, as I say, were a dance sight higher than the rest of them. So in 1995, madness began properly as Shooting Stars entered its first series. And I want to go over the format of the show. So basically, if you know Shooting Stars, you know Shooting Stars, but I'll go through the basic line of the show. 2 teams of 3 attempted to answer questions from Vic and Bob, Vic delivering the more unusual questions. Round 1 was always true or false. I'm getting ahead of myself, actually. First off, they introduced a man who is very well known now to the comedy world as Matt Lucas, who is one half of Little Britain with David Walliams. But before he was Matt Lucas, the famous comedy writer and performer, he was known as George Dawes. Now, George Dawes was the man with the scores, and he was, as Matt Lucas is, but dressed up in a baby suit. And it was quite comical seeing this big bloke in a baby suit who could play the drums, no doubt about it. You know, you could quite easily see that the guy was talented enough to do that. You know, George Dawes would come out to a rocking track. I can't quite remember what it was now, but he's a baby, he's a baby, you know, and it just went like that. So back to round 1, which was true or false. You basically had to answer true or false, and as the years went by, the true or false questions began to get really insane. It was like, I can't quite think of a a real question, but it would be like, true or false, eggs come from cows, you know, like they would make up their own answer to it. You know, I can't even begin to get into the same sort of humour that Vic and Bob do, because I'm nowhere near the same mental level, but they would give incorrect replies to logical questions. And, you know, that's what True or False was all about. And at the start of every show, you know, by the time it got to Ulrika's question, you know, it's all Ulrika, you know, it's memories like that you cannot back. You know, TV you cannot bring back like that anymore, and it's depressing enough that the show's now cancelled, but most of these programs don't exist anymore. But there you go. I mean, that was round one. The other captain at the beginning of the programme was radio DJ Mark Lamar, who went to host Nevermind the Buzzcocks as its first host. But he always had a bit of a quiff, and he always used to like a 50s star, you know, blazers, shirts with big collars, you know. I'm very sorry about the quality of this video. Like I say, it all depends on the sunlight as far as I know for the quality of these. I do apologise, but I will continue. As I say, back to Mark Lamar. He had this quiff, hair slicked back, you know, jet black hair. And Bob always used to go, he's a 1950s gold man, you know, like George Formby. And it just also, he tried not to laugh, did Lamar. And he was always trying to be straight-faced, and you know, just on occasion you could tell that he was really enjoying himself, but he always tried to play the deadpan serious bloke, a bit like Jack D, who we'll get on to later. But they were the two team captains to begin with, and then usually round two was the clips round, where Team A and Team B, because Lamar was always Team A, Ulrika was always Team B, and there was always a clips round in round two. Team A got the serious clip. For instance, the Green Cross Code Man, who was played by Dave Prowse, the guy who played Darth Vader in the 70s Star Wars films. It was the actual bloke in the suit. And he was walking kids across the street, and it was a serious question connected to that clip. It was sort of like, to the nearest 1,000, how many deaths were in 1974? Well, people walking across the road or something. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But Team B always got the jokey clip and the jokey question. Team B, their clip was usually Vic and Bob dressed up as their version of Flanagan and Allen, you know, singing a really cheesy song. For some weird reason, Vic's character in Flanagan and Allen had breasts for some weird reason, unbeknownst to everyone but Vic probably. And it was just nuts. It was good to see them having fun. I mean, sometimes the clip would include Mark, George and Ulrika. You know, like I say, it wasn't always Vic and Bob's Flanagan and Allen, but it was fun. And that's what the clips round was. Once the clips round was over, you know, like at the end of every round, they went back to George Dawes for the scores, and George would make up a little skit about, you know, oh, what you talk about, you know, you heard his real voice, and then Ulrika's got 2, Mark's got 1, you know. He'd suddenly break out of his and, you know, give scores that way. And, you know, that's the second round. As times went on, rounds became fewer, by the final series we only had 3 rounds. That was it, you know. But as I say, the next round usually was the dove from above round, which is fondly remembered because they always have to coo the bird down or coax the bird down, you know, you know, come down. And the first 5 or 6 series of Shooting Stars, I think there was only 7 anyway, but the first 5 or 6 series, there were categories to be chosen on the dove. Contestant chose a category, and if you chose a category that was connected to a star prize, so it's just a prize actually, a star prize was at the end of the show, Vic would say Iranu, like that, you know, and he'd actually pull the face like I did as well. But if you got a question incorrect in that dove from above round, it was Uvavu, you know. And I actually checked on the internet how to spell Iranu and Uvavu. I'll put the spellings up in the video description. I'm done. But one of the questions in the dove from above round was George's song, George Dawes' song, and the guy could sing. The guy could sing, no doubt about it. You know, if he didn't go comedy, I reckon Matt Lucas could have easily been in a band or been a serious singer, but he chose comedy. He's good at it. Myself, I'm not a big Little Britain fan, but I am a Shooting Stars fan. But you had George's song. You also had the club singing round, and the club singing round was one of my favourites, or the club singing question, shall I say. The club singing question was always one of my favourite parts of the show, even if I couldn't understand a word that Vic was singing, because Vic Reeves, let's say for instance, George would play the beat on the drums and Vic would sing along. And let's try and think of a song and I won't get that. Okay. Here's an example of Vic doing the club singing, and I do apologise to any and all people that are watching this, because, you know, I'm nowhere near as funny as Vic Reeves. I'll hold my hand up and say that, but I'll give you a go at my version of club singing. Just imagine the beat in the background. I can't really do it. And you know, the contestant who had chosen that particular question from the dove from above had to try and guess what that was, and 90% of the time they couldn't get it. You know, it was hilarious, because they confer with the teammates and go, "Did you know what it was?" I didn't have a bloody clue. And you know what I was trying to do there for you guys watching was, I Want to Break Free by Queen. And Bob would say, "Well, here's someone, and here's that song sounded properly," and he'd repeat exactly the same, apart from the final series where he'd sing it in a rather unentertaining way with a few dances. You know, it was nowhere near as funny as when he sang it in the club style again. A couple of series into the run, maybe series 4 or 5, the dove from above, the proper one, or the original one, was either lost or it got damaged, and it was replaced by Donald Cox, the Sweaty Fox. Now, Iranu and Uvavu were still in there, but the questions were basically still the same. But you know, Donald Cox, the Sweaty Fox, was nowhere near as good as the dove from above, and Donald could talk to Vic and Bob, and I think it was, you know, probably a recording playing. He used to insult the contestants, and you know, it was okay. It wasn't as funny as the dove, as I say. But usually after the dove from above rounds, we got a joke from Vic. he would stop all the proceedings and go. He would tell a really crap joke, you know, a pan joke, like, how do you make a sugar puff? And he would say, chase it round the garden. And you know the sucking sound that you get from dry gulps and in westerns and places like that. So like the sound you would hear over a canyon, you know, and you'd hear a death bell. And so like if someone else had said that joke, either Bob or Mark or even Ulrika or George even, if anyone else had told that joke exactly the same way, it would be the funniest thing anyone had ever heard. And Vic would be the only one not laughing. He goes, well, how come people didn't laugh when I said it? And, you know, Bob would try and explain why. And then the final round was the quick fire round. We don't know how much time we've got, but when the time's up, you'll hear this noise. And then, you know, George would say something like, I've got my pants, or something like that, you know, or just going, you know. But in that round, you really want to see those fingers. You really want to see those fingers. And we didn't get that in the final series. When was that, you know? When Shooting Stars was at its peak, Johnny Vegas was brought in. Now Johnny Vegas had a reputation for being one of the lads, you know, got drunk very easily, and you know, Johnny Vegas at his biggest was twice the size I am, and that's saying something. But you know, Johnny Vegas would sit there with a pint of Guinness every week, and it would be unpredictable about what he would say. And maybe that's why they gave him the drink in front of him, you know. But eventually when he sobered up and when he cleaned himself up and began writing crap comedies, more on that next week, it was absolute masterstroke. Shooting Stars was axed, which actually gives me hope for the future at the moment. But when Shooting Stars celebrated its 15th anniversary a couple of years ago at Christmas, I think it was on Boxing Day or the day after, Johnny Vegas was replaced by a character called Angelos Epithemou, and Angelos was played by a actor called Renton Skinner. Now Renton Skinner, I think now, is one of the funniest guys in showbiz. Now that the series has been cancelled, you know, completely axed again, I can see Renton Skinner as Angelos Epithemou, maybe doing stand-up. I really don't know. I hope so. I'd like to see more of Angelos myself. But Angelos was usually sitting on Ulrika's team, facing Jack D, who was the third captain after Will Self. There's not much I can say about Will Self's participation in the show. He was more deadpan, more serious than Mark Lamar. Funny in doses, but you know, Will Self is not the funniest guy in the world. He plays being serious too well. If anything, he's too clever. Will Self can be a very funny man, I imagine, but I didn't find him a fantastic captain on Shooting Stars. Where Jack D stepped in for the anniversary show, the show seemed to find new life, because they had brought it back for the final 2 seasons, and when Matt Lucas didn't come back because he was working on Little Britain or some other useless rubbish that him and David Walliams do, I think it was Come Fly With Me or whatever it's called, and they put Angelos Epithemu, they put Angelos in the scorer's zone, so he was keeping score, and he was just 10 times funnier than George ever was, you know. He'd used this failed MC stand to use the scores and stuff, and sort of like at the end of round one, Bob would ask him, Angelos, what are the scores? It's like, and he'd press a button and it goes 64,275,200,000, and the eventual scores were like 2-1 at the end of the show, never alone, I mean, end of round one. But one of my favourite bits in the last two series with Angelos was he'd carry in a Sainsbury's bag, you know, one of them orange shopping bags that we now see, and at the end, I think it was at the end of the new and revitalised Dove from Above round, they suddenly start the music and they go, what's in your bag, Angelos? Tell us what's in your bag. And Bob would add in the last series, you bastard, like that. And it's just something that I really enjoyed. I mean, with the last series I began to start singing it along with Vic and Bob. But when George left, Angelos really stepped up. Instead of George's song in the Dove from Above round, it was Angelos's variety showcase, where he'd like maybe grab an egg and he'd smash it on the floor, and he'd grab another one, he'd smash it on the floor, and he'd grab the third one, he'd smash it on the floor, and he'd go da-da, like that. It's like, there's nothing special about it, but it was just so deadpan. It was so well performed by Renton Skinner that it was just funny as hell, you know, like, yes, yes, you know. And his Angelos's constant infatuation with Ulrika, even though by all terms, you know, Ulrika has lost a lot of weight by the final series. She wasn't looking half as good as she did in the previous series, let alone the first couple of series. And he goes to, you know Vic's woman, he rub his legs, I forgot about that. On Vic's right, on Team A, and the left of Team A's captain, whoever it was usually a fairly good looking woman, or, you know, a model, or a TV reporter or something like that, a weather girl, anything like that, and Vic would go up against him and rub his legs, you know. Hilarious stuff. And he'd go, say like if it was, I don't know, say Lisa Snowden, or Nell McAndrew, or someone like that, who was a model, you know. She actually does modelling for a living, you know, lingerie modelling and things like that. And Angelos would go up to him and go, right, well, you know that I've seen you looking at me all the way through the show. You're making them eyes at me, you know, fluttering your eyelashes and all of that. Ulrika's my girl, and you've got no chance, you know. And he'd always go after Ulrika, and there's just a part of me that wishes that there could have been at least one more series and some sort of clip showing Ulrika and Angelos in bed, and he's finally grown out of his crack job, and, you know, he's a businessman with a sharp tie and stuff like that. But, you know, and that was that, you know. Just funny as hell. You know, in the final round, you know, the final round, after one team had won, either the captain would nominate one of his two guests, or the captain themselves would be chosen by Vic and Bob to actually play the final challenge. Final challenge was usually some weird game. I seem to remember one time they had brought in 3 fat builders, and they'd all be wearing jeans. They'd all be sitting down eating their lunch or something like that. And one of the final rounds was they were showing their builders cracks, all three of them, and you had to insert maybe a jelly things of increasing size down the back of someone's trousers without getting found out. They had to do it by using some contraption that was made in the props department, something along the lines of, so like a meter ruler, with a teaspoon tied to the end of it. You had to just tip it down the back of one of these builders' trousers. First one was like a grape, and that was alright. Second one was a jelly baby, and the jelly baby went in. And the third one was an egg, a proper sized chicken egg. He didn't notice, and whoever it was won the prize. Which the star prizes were never fantastic. I mean, as the years went on, it was one stupid prize after another. I seem to remember the penultimate series had a £1 as the star prize. But it ranged from anything. This tin of dog food is your main prize this evening. It was sort of like the tin was open with a fork in the top of it. Great stuff. But in all honesty, shooting stars was an escape. But I have to ask a couple of serious questions. The first one, really, is Vic Reeves, Jim Moyer, is Vic Reeves insane? That's a question that everyone watching this video to this point must have an opinion on, and I want your opinions on it. But in all seriousness, if Vic Reeves or Jim Moyer was not in this profession and he acted the way he did on the show, surely the guy would be put in an insane asylum. Surely the man would be condemned for insanity. The guy has been mad now for, I don't know, close to 20 years doing the Vic Reeves character. And the final question I have to ask, but it's not the final thing I want to talk about. On the 15th of November, on his social network account, Bob Mortimer said that Shooting Stars had been axed, been completely and totally finished. And this is where the moaning comes in for this week's Moaning Show. And the reason given was the fact that there was no room for panel shows or comedy panel shows on BBC television. Now, I'm sorry, but a few years ago the BBC had nothing comedy-wise apart from comedy panel shows. Let's take, for instance, the longest running comedy programme on the BBC now. Last of the Summer Wine has finished. Have I got news for you? That's a satirical look at the week's news, or past week's news, by 4 panellists and a host facing an audience, with Paul Merton, Ian Hislop, Angus Dayton until his scandal, and now we have guest hosts every week. That's a panel show. That's a comedy panel show. Would I lie to you? Again with Angus Dayton before he gave up, this time not with a scandal. Rob Brydon took over with team captains Lee Mack and David Mitchell. That's a comedy panel show about lying, and it's a bit like Call My Bluff really, but in a more funny way, more comedy way. And quite possibly the best thing to happen to BBC Two in years, Mock the Week, chaired by Dara O'Brien, the Irish comedian. With Hugh Dennis as the only other person who's been on every show, but now Andy Parsons has been a regular for a long time. Russell Howard was before he started off on his own show. Chris Addison has been a recent addition to the full-time cast, but there's been nothing better on BBC Two than Mock the Week. QI, that's a panel show, comedy panel show. Stephen Fry, Alan Davis every week with 3 other guests. That's funny, that's good. I could sort of see in a way why Shooting Stars cancelled. I mean, I've just listed 4 other comedy panel shows, but for the escapism and for the abnormality, so to speak, of Shooting Stars, it's been cancelled for an unknown reason as far as I'm concerned, because it's leaving yet more space for the absolute dog shit that is on telly at the moment. We're talking, you know, antiques programs or property development programs, property programs, you know, searching for a new home, and cookery programs, gardening programs, or reality shit. You know, it's leaving more space open for that. It's like reality TV about a group of people who live in Essex or fucking Sussex, or a group of 18 to 25-year-olds living in fucking Manchester. It's complete and total bullshit, and this seems to be the reason that they cancelled Shooting Stars, because they've got to make way for new programs. Like, well, what the hell are you doing that for? You know, Shooting Stars has a cult fan base. It's been funny for as long as I can bloody remember, and you've cancelled it to make way for more crap. You know, I mean, the BBC are beginning to lose the plot, in my opinion. Got one more F1 race, you know, in a few days' time I speak, before they start sharing that with Sky. All you see on the TV are bloody repeats these days. You know, Shooting Stars wasn't that expensive. It couldn't have been that expensive to make. The biggest expense in Shooting Stars, I would suggest, would be to get the model that Vic rubs his trousers against. You know, this sort of stuff. You know, this sort of stuff. That would, I think, be the main expense on the show. Next would be props, you know, but that seems to be the way of things. You know, it's not that expensive, which basically gives me a small hope that the digital channel Dave might pick it up. You know, Dave have brought back Red Dwarf. They brought back Red Dwarf a couple of years ago. They did 3 episodes. They're going to be bringing back Red Dwarf again next year sometime, because they're filming it, you know, in the next month or so, next 2 months. Shooting Stars has a following. I'm a member of that following, hence the band on my shoulder. That's a big shoulder. But I'm a follower of it. If it does materialise anywhere else, I'll be right on that channel. Like I say, if anyone who watches Shooting Stars and is upset like I am, please make a comment, or, you know, please let me know how you feel about it. I know I'm nowhere near good enough with my video yet, but if you want to reply with a video of your own to say your memories of Shooting Stars, or comment on your top Shooting Stars moments, your top games, your top guests even, please do so. And if anyone who watches this knows a good petition site, or is any good at online petitions, let's create a Bring Back Shooting Stars petition as soon as possible. Or, you know, if someone knows the addresses of the TV channel Dave, we'll try and get Shooting Stars back on the TV, because, as I say, it can't be that expensive to back Angelos, Vic, Bob. I mean, Ulrika, as I say, has been captain from start to finish on the BBC, and I consider her to be just as insane as Bob is. I think they're really well anyway in real life, but I would assume that a future on Dave is a possibility. So if anyone has got the technical know-how and can get back to me with a comment or a message on my, you know, YouTube inbox, or on the email at the show, which is always in the video description, please send me a message and we can try and bring back Shooting Stars, because the BBC, in my opinion, is going downhill extremely quickly by losing this, by losing F1, by losing sport, and by losing all sorts of things in place, by putting in place, you know, antiques, property and cookery programmes. There's not going to be anything else on the BBC pretty soon. So like I say, that's more or less it for this week. I do apologise firstly about the subject matter if you're not interested in Shooting Stars. I mean, obviously you wouldn't be watching it this far if you weren't. But again, I have to apologise for the camera quality and the shakes. I don't know how to stop that from happening, to be brutally honest with you. But like I say, I am recording this on a PS3 with what seems to be the worst bloody webcam in history. But, you know, that's my views on Shooting Stars, my happy memories of it, and the absolute diabolical decision to terminate it. There's got to be other people like me out there that love Vic and Bob and love Shooting Stars. Like I say, not technically a proper moaning show, but enough moaning in my opinion to give out my thoughts and memories and stuff like that. Say any comments that you want to make, just put them in the box underneath and I'll take them on board, and let's try and get Shooting Stars back as soon as possible.